In this video, I want to talk about why having a separate quality assurance team in a software development organization may not be the best idea. The first reason, it's kind of obvious, is that if the team who's writing the software isn't the one responsible for the quality or the monitoring or the operations, then sometimes they don't take the best care in the work they do. And this has just been shown over and over again as a common problem. Second involves the design of the software. A number of times in my career, I've heard cases where the development team is done, the product owners accepted it, it's been released live, but the QA team is 4 sprints behind on their automation. And that's not a pattern for success, honestly, it's not. But what can happen is the code may need to be rewritten in order to support test automation. A perfect example of this, there's a concept called SOLID in object-oriented design, which is open-close principle, single responsibility principle, dependency inversion, and such. You can look it up on Wikipedia. If you don't take good care when you develop your applications, it's really hard to automate the testing because you really want 90% or 80% of the testing to be below the UI. You don't want to be testing applications by manipulating the UI. You want to have a lot of these tests be programmatic, make the API calls, make calls to the objects and such. An analogy of this would be if you're building a home. If you're building a home, first they pour the foundation, and then they'll do the rough framing of the walls and the outside of the house. At that point, the plumbers and electricians will do their rough wiring and rough plumbing. After the electricity is tested and after the plumbing is inspected and pressure tested, then the walls can go up, the carpet can go up, the different trim and such. If you were to skip the pressure testing of the plumbing and then put the walls up and then put the carpet down and someone came back and said, well, we need to pressure test the plumbing, is it really going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. If there was a leak, then yeah, they'd probably have no choice but to tear the walls out of that part and then fix everything. So it's really best to build the application right the first time, and if your automation team is engaged at that same time and able to push back and kind of require that code be refactored to make it testable, then yeah, that can work, but often that's not the case. And so having the development team be responsible is often a better choice because they're going to have to write code that they're going to have to test, so they're going to do it better and correctly the first time. The next is a situation where, again, you have different development teams, different QA teams, and so they're all in different repositories for source control. Now, this is a problem because as the development team continues to build and change their code, the QA team is dependent on that repository. However, the dev repository is always changing. Now, inside of the development repository, if the developers change code and it won't compile because they broke something, and that just happens, right? As you add and manipulate code, you have to fix other pieces of code you weren't aware of in order to complete your task. They have to fix that because they have no choice because it won't compile. But they're not going to run the tests in a different repository with a different set of instructions and maybe tooling. And so therefore, when the QA team goes to run their code again, the code they're running against has changed and all their tests are broken. So the common theme you hear is QA's tests are always broken, we can't trust them. But reality is the development team is changing their code and they're not responsible for fixing the QA test that they break. Now the QA team is always playing catch up. This, aside from violating 12-factor principles for cloud native development, if you look on GitHub at any major repository, the tests and the platform code are in the same repo and they run together. And that's just a pattern that is on GitHub, and just about every company is doing that who has a public repo. So those are some things to think about. I know opinions vary on this. I've done it, trust me. I really think it's not a good idea, and it's best to have one unified team responsible for the quality and delivery, monitoring, and operations and support of their own application. So that's it. Thanks. Bye.